If you're moving from California to Nevada, I want you to listen up and pay close attention. There's one huge mistake, and a few other smaller ones too, that almost every Californian makes. It can cost you time, it can cost you money, it can even cost you the perfect property. So me and my team have helped hundreds of people relocate here to Northern Nevada, and I see the same issues and I hear the same questions over and over. So let's get you here and let's not make the same mistakes. So as usual, we have Sydney Lessinger here with us talking about all things with our buyers and seller clients. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
The number one mistake we see, obviously we're dealing with a lot of people inquiring and moving here from California. And where they start off is not understanding the difference in the lifestyle, the economy. Things here are different than they are in California. We always want to start off with a plan. And usually they do not have a plan. They're just randomly thinking, ooh, Nevada seems better than California. Let's move there. So when we start getting these inquiries, and a lot of you that are watching these videos are the ones that are inquiring from us, where do you like to start with them as far as getting the questions? And let's put the plan in place so they can understand the differences between what's going on here in Northern Nevada versus what's going on in California.
Definitely. I think the first conversation that you have with a potential client who may be moving to your area is to help them build their plan. A lot of the time, people don't really know kind of how to organize themselves, what steps should come first, what can maybe wait a little while, and just opening the door to say, what are you looking for? What are you trying to get out of your move from one state to another?
And it's so much more than just the house.
Yes.
So what are some of the other things that usually we're getting questions? And again, it's dependent upon if it's a retiring couple, if it's a couple with middle-aged kids or younger kids. And I would say the house is one factor, but there's just so many more others. And what are some of those?
The lifestyle that you're used to living potentially will change depending on where you're coming from California. I mean, Reno, yes, we are a big enough city, but if you're from, say, Sacramento, for example, we don't have the same downtown lifestyle that you would maybe be used to. I mean, we have a pretty decent downtown scene, but we are not even comparably close to the size of that city. And for some people, do you exercise? Do you want to live in an established neighborhood? Are you looking for new? And kind of where you want to live is also very important.
It's getting very organized in the very beginning parts of all those things. And I know anymore because so many people can work from anywhere.
Yes.
Are you seeing, or are we seeing? I mean, I know for me, we kind of get a mix of all of these things, but people that are coming with jobs, without jobs, and if they are bringing a job, are they working for a Nevada company and getting a Nevada paycheck? Or someone working from California with a California job and a California paycheck? And then there's some other issues that come up with that as far as things we'll discuss, as we go forward.
People need to pay attention, especially if they work an online job coming from California to Nevada, is our tax structure is different. So we've had a couple clients in the past that were moving for an in-person job, but it can happen not in person as well. Our tax structure changes. So sometimes what you were making salary-wise annually might shift because of how our tax structure is different.
It's funny you say that too, because I know one of your brother's really good friends. He works for a California company. And when he moved here, he was very fortunate. They did not change his salary, saying cost of living in Nevada would be less than where he is now. So for him, it was kind of like getting a big pay bump. I know some of the other things that people, if they're coming for work, trying to figure out what part of town to live in, because again, if you live in San Francisco or LA or San Diego or these major cities, our traffic's not going to be like their traffic. But we do have traffic at commute times, and with the construction and things going on. And for a lot of Californians that maybe never drove in the winter, there's issues there too. And so with that being said, obviously, depending on their price point, sometimes we're trying to figure out, and again, if we can get some lead time, like if hey, we're not moving for 90 days or 6 months, or even if they're thinking about moving in the following year, it's great to get that lead time so we can make this plan and get all the questions answered. Because I always say it's really slow. And then what happens?
You hurry up and wait, and then you go again, and then it goes and goes and goes. And then all of a sudden you've bought a house.
Yeah. It's amazing how there's this holding pattern and they're not sure what to do. And the idea is in that phase of this is during that planning portion is to figure out now where we want to be, what price we want to spend, what schools we want our kids to go to if we need that. And then when we get the go button, you got the job, you retired from somewhere and you're ready to move on, now we can make these things happen quicker. And ideally, we have at least 90 days.
Absolutely. I think 90 days, especially depending on if you're moving an entire family, is a good starting point, but I think you can never start too early.
That's what I always tell people, and you don't have to feel this pressure that we're going to try to help you or get you to do something sooner than you're ready.
Right.
It's just getting the information. It doesn't mean we have to talk every day or every week even.
Yep.
It's just making sure that, once or twice a month we're interacting and just making sure we're getting what you need. And that leads us right into the thing that we do the most, of course, is helping people find somewhere to live, or even if they're thinking about somewhere renting temporarily, is their expectations of what they think they're going to get here versus the reality of what actually actually is available for the price points here, because I do think Californians are going to think we're going to be a lot less expensive.
Right.
But it all depends on what part of California you're coming from. And when you're seeing those things, I mean, what are some of the conversations we're seeing with some of the people?
I know a lot of the time, the Californians that come over here that are not surprised are typically more towards the retirement age. So they're cash buyers, just want to get out and retire away from California, but stay close enough to be near family. And then a lot of the time, we've had a few different clients that we've been working with from Southern California, kind of more towards the Bakersfield area, less so the bigger cities, that when they come up here, our prices are either more competitive or higher than what they're used to seeing.
Yeah, if they're in Central California, you definitely, I know we've had a few people here that have recently sold homes that are $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 in California, and they're looking to spend the same here. And they're hopefully going to get more house, more space, whatever the case may be, but it's not always the case as far as that stuff goes. The other thing, sometimes, especially with our retiree couples, if you owned a home a long time in California and you were able to sell it for $2 million, $4 million, whatever it might be, sometimes what will happen is they're just so excited because our price points will be lower in those higher end markets that sometimes they're willing to overpay or they pay cash, and sometimes they need to be a little patient and have a little ability to negotiate, especially with the market that we're dealing with now at the time we're shooting this video. And so do you see sometimes people are trying to move too quickly, or they're just like, I don't care, I love it, I want to pay whatever I have to pay for it? Or are we feeling like they don't realize sometimes it's a little slower pace, a little easier to sort of negotiate a little few things here? What kind of conversations are we having with people?
We are a slower market in terms of how quickly things happen. Our turnover rate is not crazy in terms of speed. So I think a lot of the time they come thinking that they have to be in a hurry, and you don't hear. For the most part, I mean, not saying that it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's very house specific. I mean, It depends on how much you love it.
Well, we just had an example of that where we had a gentleman who liked a house. It had been on the market. We felt it was priced too high. It was at $550,000. And that seller finally just said, we are gone. And they lowered the price $50,000. And our client jumped on it, paid full price right off the bat.
Yep.
And in those kind of situations, there are times where you're going to have to move quickly and jump on things. But we feel like he got a deal. Most of those homes were selling 10, 20, 30,000 higher than where he ended up getting it. So he was super happy. So it is kind of this game. And when you are prepared and you have your plan and you know what you're ready to do and you've done some research, then you're going to feel good about knowing when it is at time to go ahead and write that full price offer and get that deal done and moving, things forward. A lot of people, especially from California, another thing is the types of property that we have here, the styles of property, especially stuff that's been built 2000 and newer, a lot different. What can you tell them about what they might expect to see?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, growing up here, I lived in wood-sided composite shingle roofed homes. That's what was being built at that time in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then as time progressed here in Reno, we started seeing a lot more stucco homes with tile roofs. I mean, we have plenty of horse property all over the place. So we do have a variety, but depending on where you're coming from, we might not have the exact of what you're looking for. As you get closer to the university, a lot of the homes are built from brick. I mean, it will depend on when they were built.
I usually find that if people like older, when I say older, I'm talking 50s, 60s, 70s built, or even older than that. We don't have tons of those, and I'm always surprised how high those homes and price per square foot, what they sell for.
Yeah.
If anyone meets you and I and meets your brother, we're big people.
Yes.
And so for us, those older homes don't ever really work great for us. I always joke with some of my clients because, they got lower door frames and lower ceilings and things along those lines. But if you're into the older properties, they always seem to be selling for more than we think they are, just because, like I said, the inventory on those is not nearly like all this new construction as we're spreading out all over town. New construction options for people. Obviously, some parts of California haven't seen new construction in quite some time just because they're landlocked, whatever the case may be. Here, and in my whole life living in Nevada for the last almost 45, 50 years, there's always seems to be some level of new construction. We would love, honestly, to see more new construction, but that is an option for many people, and it doesn't matter what price point you're in.
No, exactly. We have quite a few different home builders. D.R. Horton typically is who you will see building what we call entry-level homes, so more our median sales price type of homes. And then we do have luxury builders here. I mean, Toll Brothers is our biggest. So in any price point that you're looking in, we potentially have a new home construction that's going on.
And a little pro tip here that we'd like to tell people, especially for someone who might be moving here that doesn't have a home to sell in California, or maybe doesn't have a bunch of equity built up. And of course, affordability everywhere is an issue right now with prices and all those kind of things are. For some of you, it might make sense to rent for a little while.
Right.
And what kind of options? I mean, I know you can go in apartments and single family homes and lots of things. We can rent right from the homeowners or some sort of property management company. It is honestly harder to find rental property sometimes because there's so many places to look. It's not the same as looking for single family or just looking for something to buy.
Right.
But how many people are we seeing? A large percentage of people renting, or are you seeing mostly just they're coming and buying?
Yeah, most of the time they're coming and buying. It will be rare, not rare, but not common that we'll have people coming to call us to say, hey, we want to rent for a year before coming and really deciding whether we're going to buy or not. And more often than not, they end up in a single family residence pretty similar to potentially what they would buy anyway, just to make sure that it fits their lifestyle.
Right. And this goes back to what we're talking about as far as the number one myth goes. If you're not preparing far ahead of time,
Right.
the idea would be if we get enough lead time, you're going to get to learn enough about our area. Because the big thing is, I don't know much about Reno. I don't know where I want to be. The idea is to knock all that out of the park so that when you're ready, you'll know where you want to be and you'll be comfortable buying a home rather than renting. Because I always tell people, you can do it, but moving twice if you don't have to,
Ooh, yeah.
it's kind of a big thing. So if you're thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, do me a favor. Click the link in the description below. We'll get you a copy of our free buyer's guide that will get your journey started and help you understand what's going on. Cost of living. I know people just are going to assume, oh, Nevada, it'll be cheaper than California. I know there's parts of California that are going to be, housing-wise cheaper, something like we've already talked about, but it's not the whole picture. So one of the key points and one of the biggest ones we always talk about is no income tax.
Right.
So a huge one obviously is a benefit coming here with a no income tax, but it's not the whole picture. So some of the other things that people have to understand is when we talk about these properties is property taxes.
Yes.
So what kind of things can you quickly tell them about the pros and cons or something about property taxes that are totally different than the way they work in California?
Yeah. So in California, your purchase price is how they determine your new annual taxes for your property. It is not the same here in Nevada. There is a process that happens when the house is first constructed. And then basically, I can't remember what's the cap per year.
Well, so for an increase. So
Yes.
a lot of times if you're looking to buy new construction, you don't even know what the property taxes are going to be yet because it hasn't been assessed. And they're going to assess the land value, they're going to assess the property. And so you don't know what the property taxes are going to be. But we've done a video about this where if you took 4 homes that were the same, so they were all $700,000 homes, and one was built in the 70s and one was built in the 90s and one was brand new. The new houses are going to have much higher property taxes, but the old houses have a 3% per year cap. It only can go up 3% so that you won't just overrun somebody. You're seeing this in other parts of the country now where all of a sudden the property taxes got doubled or tripled on someone and then they can't afford where they live.
Right.
So our property taxes are different, like you said, and this is part of why some people in California don't move because they bought their home so long ago, they're locked into these old property taxes.
Yep.
So it is something that is different here, but it's not something, and again, they're going to be in the listings. New construction is a little bit of a wild card, trying to figure that part of it out. And so, we'll have to see. But some other things about new is HOA fees,
Yes.
potentially assessments. So there's some things out there that people have to be aware of because what we're trying to do is figure out, especially for lower price, more entry-level people, the whole payment. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance, HOA fees. If you buy new, what other things can you expect? And it's making sure that these cost of living things are affordable. And we always say, if you can get your housing piece organized,
Yes.
the rest of it, and let's talk about the rest of it, how do you feel about it? As someone who's going to be 24 here shortly,
Yeah.
how do you feel about the rest of cost of living here? You've been other places. How do you feel about it?
I mean, we're more expensive than some of the places that I have lived in my life. I went to school in Montana, and that's pretty dirt cheap up there.
Right.
But coming back, and in comparison to a lot of cities, honestly, of our size, we're very comparable to everybody else in terms of grocery prices. Our gas prices, honestly, are pretty fair. Just things along those lines. We're not drastically above or below what people are typically used to.
Well, when they use that like national standard and
Yes.
there's these things, we'll say, hey, average is 100. We're usually a little below, above. Just depends on what exact topic we're talking about.
Yep.
The two things that people might not be aware of is car registration.
Yes.
Tell them about your story.
Oh my goodness. I got a rude awakening. I got a new car after I graduated college. And before then, I was driving your previous car. It was a 2006 older car.
20-year-old car.
Yep. And I was used to paying, I think it was $150 to get my car smogged and registered all at the same time.
Right.
And the first time I got my new car smogged and registered, it was $450.
Right.
And I was very surprised by that.
It's all based on the value of the vehicle. Yep. So again, newer vehicles are going to pay more. When you paid more, why do you think that is?
Well, I know that it directly goes into our roads, and obviously portions of our gas go there. I see where it goes every single day. I drive on it.
Well, the nice part here is in Northern Nevada, we've got really good roads.
Yes.
They've been working on the problem areas, our Spaghetti Bowl, going out to the North Valleys, Pyramid Highway. They're trying to expand in the areas that have traffic issues.
Yes.
So it's like, if we pay a little bit more for gas, and again, I don't mind what I call use taxes, where people who drive more, use more, spend more on those taxes.
For sure. Then
it seems to be a pretty fair thing. But it is kind of interesting. I've had people move here from other places that their registrations were just some sort of flat fee, $25, $50, $100. And they're like, oh God, it's $1,000 or $800. It's a totally different one here. Health insurance.
Yes.
Feelings.
I have been very fortunate. I'm still on my parents' health insurance. So in terms of cost and things of that nature, I'm not necessarily super well versed, but in the conversations that I have been having with clients who are coming from California, be careful because some of the insurance providers that you have over there are not in network over here.
Right.
So be sure that you research good health insurance. Honestly, sometimes your home insurance, the companies are different, and just make sure that whoever you're insured by covers you here.
And this goes back to, like you said, with your employment situation.
Yes.
If you're working for a California company or how your job, like where you live and where you work, you need to be paying attention to those things to make sure that your healthcare coverage, like you might have awesome coverage, but you'd hate to have to go back to California every time to use it.
Yes.
So just questions and things to be thinking about. That's something you probably should talk to who you work with and figure those things out. If it's someone who, hey, I'm just bringing my job with me. So that's not for everybody, but you just have to see how that works. So another topic that people need to plan for, think about is the weather, the geography. Sometimes if you bring the wrong vehicle with you,
Yes.
things like that. But I think a lot of people just assume they've been to Las Vegas and our weather's gonna be similar to Las Vegas, and it is not the same. Our climate's not the same. We are totally different than down there.
We're hundreds of miles apart, first off, from Vegas. I mean, it's a 6.5, 7-hour drive from Reno to Vegas. So we are further apart than I think people realize, and we're a completely different climate than Vegas. So if you have been to Vegas, very dry, very hot, very desert. We obviously are high desert up here, so you can get into the mountains, you can get into the trees and get into the snow if you want it. But for the most part, our weather stays in the mountains. Not saying it will not snow on the valley floor. We've had a pretty mild winter this go round, but I mean, we've had years where we're shoveling snow for a couple months and it happens, but definitely being prepared for all 4 seasons, colder weather, a drier climate, and just kind of overall differences between where you may have come from.
We tell people it's 300 days of sunshine,
Yep.
7.5 inches of rain, water per year. Most of the snow stays up in the mountains. And what people have to understand is typically hot weather for us is in the 90s. We typically get a week or two. There's going to be some 100-degree days.
Yes.
The wintertime, it's usually more 30s, high 20s, but we might have a little cold spell and get real cold. But for the most part, it's not like you have to be out here and have snow chains and 4-wheel drive vehicles and all those kind of things. It's nice at minimum to have a front wheel or an all-wheel drive, but you don't need some big monster vehicle to get around. I mean, you and I've never had really, for the most part, big cars. I drove around a minivan 20 years ago and got around just fine. So just know it's not as huge an issue, but it is something where we do get all 4 seasons. And people have to understand, there are certain times of year you do have to think about what you're doing, where you're driving, and what vehicle may or may not work for you up here.
Yeah, definitely.
A couple other things we're talking about the weather and geography, because a big topic lately obviously has been insurance issues in California over wildfires.
Yes,
We get wildfires here,
we do.
not nearly to the magnitude that they get them there. We have had, a few of our clients I've known over the years have lost homes to fires. So just want people to be aware of that. And then what can you tell them? Because it is something that happens here, is flood damage.
Yes.
The river runs right through downtown Reno. In the commercial areas of Sparks, I've seen flooding happen numerous times, whereas a couple of other areas that people need to be aware of.
So actually, the South Meadows is entirely a floodplain. And originally, when you first bought a house down in that area, everybody said that you were insane because that the houses were going to sink and that everything was just going to get bogged down in the mud. And it never happened and probably won't, but I don't know.
They've done a really good job of setting up the drainage,
Yes.
setting up those things. But I know there's areas in the North Valleys, there was areas in Lemon Valleys where there were streets and neighborhoods that literally had issues as far as all that stuff goes. Okay. So the last thing that we want to talk about with these Californians, if you're going to move here, we want you to move here. I'm pretty happy helping people move here. But the mindset and the mentality, you'll see billboards. We've seen things around town that are basically like, great, leave the California stuff, the reasons why you're leaving California there. We are not going to talk about politics. We're not going to talk about other issues that California has that people want, or driving them out of there. But they need to be aware. If you're going to come here, come be a Nevadan. Come kind of operate the way we operate. I mean, I would imagine most people you're talking to are leaving California for some reason that I don't want to say they're upset with it, but they're just not thrilled about being there anymore. A lot of longtime California people.
Yes.
What are some of the things that we're hearing talking about? What do you think?
Well, first off, California is getting very, very expensive. And I think a lot of the rules and regulations that California has been implementing that are cost to the residents of the state are what is driving them out. Yes, Reno is more affordable in a lot of aspects. I mean, when I talk about property taxes, a lot of the time people go, that's it.
Right.
So I think it's an affordability issue a lot of the time.
Well, and for people that are thinking about bringing, we do a lot of 1031 exchanges, people bringing their rental properties from there to here, and we are much more landlord friendly.
Yes.
We are much more, property owner friendly. We're not at this point, knock on wood, it's never been where we got rent controls or any of those kind of things. So again, if you were trying to go out and buy a rental property with, 20, 25% down, those numbers don't work quite the way they used to work anymore. But for people that might be bringing large sums of cash, trying to get in that investment game and doing those kind of things, it has definitely become a place where, hey, I still have to live in California for a while, but I want to get some of my other dollars out of California. So that's also something that we can help people with. But just remember, you're coming to Nevada for a reason. You know, I'm not saying you have to like completely morph yourself into a different person, but the mindset needs to change. We are different here. Our infrastructure is different here. We are not as big a city as many of these places that people come here from, and we are not as crowded. It's more friendly, I feel like. So people just need to be aware of like, get your mind right. I think most people that are coming here are pretty excited to get here, right?
Definitely. And the more that they learn that about Reno and what Reno has to offer them, the more excited they get.
Right, because we're trying not to make California 2.0.
Right.
This is a lot of things you hear people, all these major cities all over the West Coast are being inundated with Californians, and there are pros and cons to that. Make a plan, be prepared, reach out to us well in advance, ask your questions so that we can help you get here in a way that makes you feel good about it. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Perfect. If you're someone who lives in California that's thinking about moving to Northern Nevada and you're wondering, is it cheaper to live in Nevada? Check out this video we did right here to help you find some of your answers.